Are we ready?
Just opening up.
Okay. Hi.
Yeah, I get
Hey.
You should
how
be
are
right.
you?
Right.
Claims. This is the season.
Madam Chair, whenever you're ready.
Okay. We will call the meeting to order. Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes from March 25th?
Lovely,
Yes,
detailed.
Yes.
Thank you.
it's amazing. Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of March 25th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from March 25th.
Okay. I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, those are approved. Okay, right off to the marijuana business ordinance. We have not changed anything on what Dennison has sent over yet. I'll pull that up on my phone. Oh, let me pull those up. Didn't print it out. Let me,
Where do I find that? I'm trying to get that user and help me here on the city site, and I can't find a place where I can access it.
To look at the,
I don't think it was,
it's in the packet, so
Packet.
go, I think you go to council meeting, or the agenda thing, and then there's two different links.
yeah, it'd be for
One is
tonight's
supporting
council, not
docs.
for this specific meeting, I don't think.
right, and it would be, it was pretty, yeah.
Application, I've got lots of Zoom meeting stuff, I've got the agendas, April 8th.
So if I go to government, city council meetings,
And it doesn't have a,
agendas and minutes,
City council meetings. Doesn't have any-
oh, that doesn't have the agenda packet there.
oh,
That's not good.
oh,
The link that the city sends out has the agenda packet.
but
It
it's
gets
not,
you there with, trying to navigate from the website, it might be interesting.
No, I just have a little aura around me that generally checks.
No.
These just don't
Okay.
work like
So
they're
let
supposed
me-
to, so it could just be me.
Oh, no, I doubt it. It's,
Yeah.
so let me, what's your, phone number?
406-598-3420. Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, 406-598-3420?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just sending you a picture of it, it's not very long.
Okay. Yeah, you can let them breeze through it. It looks, I mean, the 30-second reads.
Yeah, it's just pretty basic.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep. So, yeah, I guess, this is up for discussion tonight.
It is there, it's just on the main council agenda packet.
Yeah, she got it to me, I now have it.
Okay, so, anybody have any, comments on this? Dave, did you get a chance to review it?
Yeah, I was
After
reading
he-
through it again, and it got pulled off, but
Yes, mainly I just want extra eyes on this, does this do what we want it to do at this point? We were going to do basically a two-step process
yeah.
for now, and then, is it a resolution to put something on the ballot? Is that right?
yeah,
Okay. For
and
the,
our timeframe, we have some significant time. I mean, we've got until like September, but we still need to
Okay.
do it, so.
yeah, I think that would definitely be our next step. We'll get this ordinance and then, the resolution to put before the voters if they want the cultivation and manufacturing.
Going through
So
apologies.
what I saw in this that I thought did address the questions that we had was what happens if it changes hands, and number 2 basically says, any alteration, change in location, change in business type or structure shall go through the new application process. And then, number 3 basically describes that is the that's a weighted
Is there anything, I'm not catching it, as far as transfer of an existing business?
So what I saw is an approved may operate in accordance with the application that was submitted. So any alteration, change in location, change in business type or structure shall subject it to a new application, which what you're saying is an explicit, if it's the same business in the same location, it can be transferred without being
Transfer of
resubmitted.
ownership, everything stays the same.
Yeah, no, we do need to have that.
Does that need required?
I think it needs to be spelled out,
Yep,
yeah.
that needs to be very clear.
Yeah, 'cause from what we've been receiving from people, I really think that's what,
Yep,
I wouldn't, well, I mean, but then you need to protect yourself against the inevitability that they could come in and smooth their way in here and then say, oh, I want to open a cultivation site up, you know, something.
Yeah.
As far as you've got all of that covered, I think you're,
yeah, I think,
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we were okay if they just smoothly transition and do exactly what you were doing,
Yeah,
but
yep.
should they change anything, then it goes up. Refreshing my memory after 2 weeks.
did I
Yeah.
miss anything last night? Was there any?
we didn't have to just basically, clean up the ordinances as written as from last time, so. Okay.
So basically, section 2, just to say, an additional clarification, it explicitly says is an existing, business location and type, that it can't be transferred
Well, just yeah, business,
without the process.
however you want to say that, yeah. If an existing business meets all of the requirements of, you know,
Yeah,
of the original application, you know, no change, if there's no changes to the original application or site, a business owner may transfer to a new owner, or something like that, you know, however Dennison would do his legalese in there, so.
yeah.
Would they still be operating or filling out that weighted application similar to what we said, or is it just a straight application, just a straight transfer?
As long as there's no changes whatsoever, there wouldn't be any additional application work. That's what I understand.
Well, they would have to fill out a new application, but it wouldn't be open to everybody,
No,
right?
it's not, they don't do the weighted because it's already been approved.
Approved, right, so, but they would just,
There's a business transfer and anything from a business transaction standpoint, but there's no evaluation.
so how do we know that it's gonna be the same? Do we have, is the city gonna do some type
That's what
of?
number 2 says, if there's a change in location or change in business, then they have to go through it, but then with
Okay.
addition, if it's an existing business and location,
With no changes,
with no changes.
okay,
So you're adding that, or?
we're gonna add that, yeah.
Yeah, that's the number 2, I think that's what I heard the
Yeah,
recommendation, and
yeah.
we'll get Dennison to weigh in on it.
Okay,
I would think they'd be able to, I mean, obviously supply you guys with their license number, which would be specific to a dispensary license, not anything else other than that. So you would have that as, you know,
Yeah.
this entity operating under this license number, which is strictly a dispensary license, seems like it would cover you guys.
Dude, so if somebody is involved in like 4 of the categories, do they have 4 different numbers then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's the rub of it all. I have 3 licenses that I pay for separately, have 3 separate certificates on the wall. But when it comes around to actually selling the licenses, I have 1 license to sell, 1 package. I have to sell all 3 of them at one time. I can't piece and parcel them out. So it's kind of ridiculous on that end. Literally 3 separate licenses,
Right.
3 separate payments, 3 separate certificates, and yet when it comes to selling them, I can, like, just,
But they're a bundle?
So
yes, they are.
when you sell your license,
Mhm.
that number transfer with it?
Uh,
Or is it no
That's a good question. I would think that they would probably issue them a new number, but they wouldn't necessarily add an additional license to the kitty. I mean, my license would go away, their license would take effect. I would theorize that they would issue them a new number. But it may be too that they would have their own, I mean, if it's a dispensary coming in, they'll already have their own number. So it would just be, my number would be pulled back. We don't necessarily have to even get rid of the licenses. I mean, somebody else is gonna come in and bring their licenses. Potentially, I just will move out of location, retain my licenses, potentially operate the cultivation site up on the East Bench, or not. I'm excited to do all that. But yeah, they'd have their own license.
Okay,
They'd have their own
there's
license number.
two ways it could go. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good clarification.
You can sell an existing business, which would be all of your licenses,
Right.
or you can simply transfer your lease and business equipment,
Right.
inventory to an existing license holder. So
Correct.
there's two ways to transfer the ownership of the business.
And you would keep
Right.
all your licenses
Right.
and just,
Yes, and that is kind of two options we're looking
Right.
at right now.
Okay.
We're putting up for sale the entire operation, which is location, all licensing, cultivation site with my property and my home, cultivation equipment, everything. Anticipating that what will probably happen is it'll boil back down to, no, they really just want that, and the bargaining chip will go towards just the moving of the dispensary location. But yeah, it could be a private investor coming in out of the blue with no prior cannabis experience, just wants in, and then they would buy all of that, including my licenses. Or the boiled down version would be existing operation coming in with their licenses and just taking over the location. I step back with my licenses and just get out the dispensary part of it, still operate my cultivation and or manufacturing facility up on the east bench.
Which, when I think about this, the stuff that's happening on the east bench, those licenses, those aren't affiliated with the city at all.
No,
Yep.
those are state.
So it would just be the dispensary. And so there would technically be a new owner
Mhm.
and then also new business.
Mhm.
But essentially exact nature, same location.
Mhm.
And in that situation, I feel like they would need to fill out.
I think they would need to fill out an application, but it wouldn't open it up to
Right, yeah.
everyone being able to, new people
They would
coming
have to
in.
be able to qualify to
Right.
transfer.
Yeah,
I think that's the
Yeah, I
difference
get
there.
that.
It's not that they would
Yeah.
have to fill out a new application, they would have to qualify for the application transfer. So just in change of that language, so that way it is still a transfer, it's not a new application process.
Right.
Even if it is the same like, the qualifiers
Mhm.
are the same as what you would go through for that application process. But then that way, that registration no longer, is not void, or it's not gone, it's now that's actually getting transferred. Does that make sense? Does that track with everybody?
Yeah.
'Cause,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's the way that you spell that out. And so one thing that we had in 907, and again, I refer back to this because it is specific around registrations. Originally, what we had written is the transfer of business registration, and again, I apologize, lost my voice a bit this weekend. Transfer of business registrations, if a party seeks to transfer a business to another party and the exact nature and location of the business remains the same, the city clerk, upon payment of the required transfer fee, shall transfer the business registration certificate without further investigation or review. I think we could add a section there that could just be for that qualifier piece. And again, that to me could go for any businesses in town.
mhm,
So say like, no, I mean, it's hard to say an example because like no one else has a cap really. But like if you were to say like, a coffee shop's coming in, but it's no longer Coffee Roasters, it's now Mountain Mama Java. And it's technically a different business.
mhm.
I mean, they'd still have to go through the same qualifications, and for that level, it's nothing, like, right? But,
How does it, probably the closest example would be short-term rental.
and even that, we're still gonna keep non-transferable, was the intent that I heard from our last conversation.
Correct.
There's a cap, that's the only other thing in town you have a cap
Yep.
on.
And again, I mean, for that, yeah, they'd go, if we had it transferable, they'd have to go through that whole qualifier, the same stuff. Like, again, inspections, fire inspections, sanitation inspections, walkthroughs, paperwork, like resort tax bonds.
Yeah, you still have to do all the paperwork.
Yeah, but with the way we have it now is it's non-transferable. So again, that's one way that we could do it. I just think that if you have a two-part where it's like, if it's the same business, they're buying your license, that doesn't change. They don't have to go through all the pieces.
Right.
But if it is a new business
Bringing their own license.
bringing their own license, they have to prove those qualifications. That's my 2 cents on it.
Mhm.
And the qualifications would be back to the original.
It would just be the same application, but instead of that registration being a new application, it would just be a qualifier.
Right. Yeah, it's not, they're not up against anybody.
Exactly.
Right, yeah, it's not opening it up to the whole, you
Yeah.
know, state of, or the whole country for people to come in and
Yep.
apply for.
Exactly.
Whatever.
It doesn't open up the application process, it just proves a qualification, that you're eligible to have a transfer. Dave's giving me a look.
I know.
No, I was just gonna say, my understanding is they always have, even if they bought his, they'd in essence have their own number. And so like, if somebody comes in with their own number,
Mhm.
because they already exist someplace else, and they buy his right to do business in location X,
Mhm.
you're saying, yes, that still goes through the process because they have their own number?
It goes through a qualification, well, it would go through a qualification process. It's again, not necessarily an application process, it would still be essentially the application process, but without opening,
Qualification to verify they meet
Yes.
everything?
Yep.
Right, that they meet all the guidelines, that they have all their state paperwork in place, that they have
Yep.
all the, you know, if there's fire inspections, whatever, you know, that they have
The only difference is you're not opening it up for
application,
other people.
additional people to apply for. the
Right,
location.
correct, yep,
Because if that were the case, then it would be the license, and then it would be, they could pick anywhere in town. I mean, it would be like, he's leaving, so now it's all open.
yep,
So,
The other thing that I look at is that ultimately this still needs to create a section of municipal code, because that's, if I'm a new user going in someplace and I'm gonna go see what the laws are, I go look at municipal code.
Right.
I don't look at 137 years of ordinance history.
yeah.
yeah,
So it needs to create municipal code.
right. So we will need to do that, but,
So it needs codified, it needs a section specific to, if it's them buying you, no additional application required, or qualifications required. If it's new person coming in, their own license, qualifiers are required.
Correct.
They're buying your business and your model and everything
Yeah, with my license,
with your license, that'll,
sure.
because I imagine if they're buying your license with the state, they also have to go through process there too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
All the fires,
Yep,
inspections.
Yep.
The building.
so that would be the qualifier there, so
Yeah, and that's an annual renewal.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
okay, so,
So as you share it tonight, you can share that those are the changes to what they have in the packet, and we may or may not have an updated copy to hand out to them by then
okay.
to address that.
Is Dennison around? Okay.
I've reached out to him, I have not
Okay.
gotten a response yet,
Okay. All right,
but I know he's working on the Thursday meeting too, so.
okay. All right, any other, things that we still need to be addressed in this?
I guess just a question then, so moving forward on my end,
Mhm.
in terms of, we've got brokers lined up, they've already got it, they are listing us. I'm
Okay.
gonna hold off on getting anything too serious until I hear from you guys. Yeah, don't worry about it, move forward with this, we've got this. Until then, I'm gonna hold people off. So is this the point where I can say, yes, I can start showing this property? Or do I need to hold off until you guys dot some more i's and cross some t's?
I saw two significant, I mean, we know what they are, but this will take two readings as an ordinance. Once it's to that point tonight, it's just a discussion to see if everybody else is okay with it.
Okay,
So it'll be the first, the earliest it'll pass will be the first meeting in May. Because, there'll be this discussion, end of April will be first reading, public hearing,
okay.
and then second reading, public hearing in May, and final vote.
And I think after tonight, you'd have a good feel for where that's heading,
Right.
based off the discussion with the full council.
Yeah,
But I think what this is putting in place that didn't exist prior to this, particularly if we explicitly put it in there, is the transfer
right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
process, which wasn't spelled out before.
Yeah, and if there was, you know, big stink on it, then, no pun intended on that.
Right.
But if there was big stink, it would probably come up today.
Yeah.
And you're thinking the big stink would be more so within your council or?
Within
public
full
council?
council.
Is that
Well,
what you think public
you can
council?
never,
You can never tell what the public's gonna do, but the public also doesn't get the vote on this.
I
They
know.
do get to weigh their opinion.
Yeah, I expect we'll have some public comments
Yep.
made on it, for sure.
Oh, for sure. And then,
But what people need to realize, it's not actually, nothing we're
changing.
doing is changing anything. We're not going to, it would take a vote of the public
Right.
to remove them from the city limits.
Sure.
So that's, that isn't what this is about.
Yeah.
You know, we will have 2 licenses in the city of Red Lodge regardless of if we pass this or not.
Mhm.
So, it'll
Yeah.
just be a matter of educating them. It's like, yeah, we really appreciate your input, but that's not what this vote is about.
Yeah, and the only thing I can
So-
really see change, or like based off our conversation, is that the rest of council may require that whether it's yours or whether it's a new person buying it, they might all have to go through that same qualification process, which,
I guess
Again.
I would expect that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would really be the only thing that I could see that someone might have issue with, right? I mean, if-
This industry is used to jumping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be surprised by
Yeah. again, that's really the only thing. Otherwise, to me, this all seems pretty straightforward, and I think it provides good protections for the city
Yeah.
as well as for the business owners. Again, it's making sure that the folks that are coming in are good actors, and again, either they're following your exact model and just new face,
Yeah.
or you have, someone else
Cheech and
who's,
Chong coming in.
Right.
Yeah. Honestly, highly support. That would be a great boon for town.
I know.
Well, the state's not taking any slack off of any of these growers. They just shut down, so Magic City Relief, which is the other one that was up in Salacia, the new
Yeah.
building they built there, they just got shut down.
Oh, really?
Bad actors, really bad actors. This is their second, or probably their 3rd offense now. They were almost shut down a year ago. They finally just reached the boiling point, shut them down. They have been now sold to, Bloom, and Bloom picked them up. So Bloom now operates all of so now, just so you know, Bloom operates 1 dispensary here, 2 dispensaries down in Bridger, and now it's taken over the dispensary up in Salacia.
They have 2 dispensaries in Bridger?
Well, there's 2 licenses available.
Oh, okay,
And
and
they
they
have
bought.
one Sweetgrass, and they snapped up the other one, and they don't really have like a storefront, the way I understand it. It's kind of like they have a license, they have a business entity there, but they're not really doing business, they just kind of sucked it up.
Yeah, they're just
So-
taking it
Okay.
for
Right.
lack of
Out
competition.
of curiosity, what was the infraction that got them?
This time around, I'm not sure, last time around, it was selling to minors, it was, not checking for any, ID, it was not, releasing final packaging and exit package, which means all of our prepackaged, sealed, heat-sealed stuff goes into an exit package with a child-proof zipper on it before it leaves the door. They weren't doing that. This time around, I don't know. What we heard is that they were just involved in a lot of other types of narcotics other than the ones they were supposed to be.
Hey.
This is the bad actor. in our
Yeah.
industry.
I would have liked
Sadly
to have
found
thought that the,
loopholes that people with smart lawyers can say, hey, they didn't address that, and therefore you can probably get away with doing that, and they will, sadly. But they get snipped out pretty quickly. The
Yeah,
state's thumb on things when they want to is pretty heavy. Sometimes it seems to us like they kind of drag their feet on these things. Those guys should have been shut down a year and a half ago.
yeah, I said, the minor and
We
the,
thought they were. We thought, like, sweet, they're done. Get them out of my county. We were pretty upset, actually, because they came in right on our heels, right after we had worked so hard to smooth the waters with you and the planners and
county,
commissioners.
yeah.
All of that. And they came in right on their heels and started pulling their shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to Billings with that crap.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't tolerate that here in Carbon County.
Yeah,
Right.
So I'm glad to see that they're cleaning them up, but, for Bloom to have snapped them up, we heard Bloom acquired over 50 new, businesses over the last month. Bloom is making a huge snatch and grab, whether they're gonna, I don't know what they're doing. I think it's that business model where they take them all, build them up, and sell them all off over the course of a few years. I don't know that, that's what we've heard in the
Yeah.
industry, but they are absolutely making a huge grab for anything they can get, which may include us. I just got a text from somebody, it could have been them. They're not my first choice. They're not even my second or third or fourth, fifth choice.
Yeah,
But the thing is that they probably are the ones that have the capital to do this.
yeah.
So, I don't know, I have to wrestle with that myself. I mean, I don't know, I've mentioned it before, but again, it was creating a monopoly in Red Lodge.
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
I know that's a touchy situation, but.
Well, and then you have to look at, we're allowing 2 licenses, which in our eyes was 2 businesses.
Mhm.
And if they buy up both licenses and we only have 1 business, where does that
Yeah.
leave the city? Do we,
And I would think that they, in theory, at that point, they would have the opportunity to just say, well, we're not just gonna shut that dispensary down. Now we've only got 1 dispensary in Red Lodge.
Right.
We still
Yeah.
have, like in Bridger, we have both licenses, but we just have 1 location.
right?
Something to consider.
So let's look at it, we'll just handle that, because if they shut it down and they wanna come back in, they'd have to go through the same process as everybody else at that point.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. All right, well, I feel we have a pretty good handle on what we're doing. We'll get this done, and then as far as codifying it,
That's a change to the ordinance, to have it specify and put that in there. So
Okay.
that's an additional change too.
okay, so would Dennison handle that for us? Okay, thank you.
Fabulous. Okay.
All
Oh,
right.
God, I didn't take any notes on all that.
And,
That's
and-
okay.
And the update tonight will either be it's been relayed to Dennison, or it's been relayed to Dennison, and here's his latest updates, but
Okay,
there's also a couple weeks before.
okay. Yeah, I would just like council to have, well, I guess we can discuss what we're planning, and hope that, that first reading, I would like to have had them already had a good discussion and eyes on it before we vote, so. Okay,
Very
oh
good.
my gosh, we're actually gonna do business registration ordinance 907.
I will see you guys soon.
All right,
Very good.
thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
All right. So, what we had talked about at our last meeting was actually, because we're doing all of this for the marijuana ordinance, basically outside that, and do we still want to move the short-term rental outside that too, so that there's just two separate ordinances, one for marijuana, one for anything that has that cap on it?
We can have the standardized business registration, and then anything with a cap has an additional ordinance to
And
it.
then we would say,
'Cause we already have ordinance 963, that specifies the cap, and then we were taking basically everything else out and putting it into 907, like categories, process, good neighbor policy. No, that was actually,
so we
been
did good.
so long since we've worked
Yeah,
on
the
this.
good neighbor policy's done, it's over, we're good. It just said that there would be a good neighbor policy,
Yeah,
I think is what it said,
so,
in that ordinance that we
um,
already,
I'm gonna try and type this out real quick, and then, what I can do is actually pull up 907 with
Okay.
the most current edits.
okay.
So let me join that meeting real quick.
Perfect.
Oh, wrong one. This link.
Just remember, no audio.
Yep. Oh geez, my computer has been extra wiggy today. No audio, beautiful. Join. All right. So this was the most recent edited copy, and I will zoom in for everybody because I know it's going to be itty bitty. I don't know if you make it a little bit smaller than that. So again, Dennison and Danae and Lonnie, I believe, had all gone through this at one point, so I'll just bring it up to the top. Originally, there was the conversation of no transfer of business license, and again, that was mostly because,
Business registration.
yes, thank you,
I know.
business registrations. Specifically, that was because of short-term rentals, and realistically, to get a business registration for another business in town, it's not too hard of a process.
Right.
And then, but there wasn't much in the way of changes to this. We discussed any of the professions or occupations in this section. Apologies, I'm just gonna kind of get down. There's minor edits throughout. One thing that was considered was temporary vendor sponsor, like an
Yeah.
endorsement. A registered business may obtain an endorsement that allows said business to sponsor a temporary vendor at their designated place of business and accepts the responsibility in writing to keep records of all items sold and the amount of resort tax owed, remit said resort tax and is responsible for any audits, and is responsible for any and all penalties. So I still like having that. I think that's
Mhm.
smart.
What would the endorsement look like?
I think it would just be like an additional application,
Okay.
and it would be like with,
Would there be a charge for it, or you just do it?
I don't know, I mean,
I think you would just do it, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't.
yeah.
But you would just keep, but it would just, for the city to be able to keep track of who's
Yep,
actually
it'd be,
doing that?
and I think what it would just need to require would be, okay, who are your temporary, like, who are you sponsoring? Nature of their business, like, just some general information to where we know what's going on.
Well, for some, it would be like with the farmer's market, they sponsor different vendors every week. So I don't
Yep.
know that you can actually keep, I mean, I guess when they file their report, they could provide a list or something like
I mean, I
that
think
of
they'd
who
have
they-
to,
Of who they, because we haven't been.
yeah,
We just included in ours, and the sales in ours, like at the market, if we have temporary vendors. We don't have them that often.
sure.
But like the farmer's market is every weekend, and they have different vendors. So when they do their list, do they provide I mean, it could be kind of a lot, you know, especially like with someone like the farmer's market, where they have to give a list of every vendor and how much they paid in resort tax. Each
Well, I'm not
business
saying
and
they
their
necessarily
sales,
have to
or-
break up the sales of it, but I think they should specify who they're sponsoring. And again, like, so, question for farmer's market, 'cause I don't know, I don't get to go very much. How frequently does that list of people change, and how, by
Every
how
week.
much?
It can change every week,
Okay,
because they get different, sometimes somebody doesn't show up, or they, you know, they kind
Yep.
of change throughout the summer. And then but they may have like a list set by the beginning of summer, I'm not sure, you know,
Yeah.
how that works. You know, and then these people will show up or not show up throughout the summer.
okay.
I
Again, if they don't
think
show up, like, that's not that big of a deal, they're still sponsored.
Yeah,
And again, I don't think you necessarily have to track, I mean, they would have to have that track for auditing purposes, but in terms of remittance, it would be a lot like short terms where we have it bundled up.
okay.
So, I mean, I don't have any issue with that, I just feel like it would be good to know who they're sponsoring, so say, like, again, not trying to, say a bar sponsors, a vendor and you don't know who it is, and it's actually like a private dancer or something, who knows, but, again, it's just good to know
Well, no, it would be
nature.
more like, you know, someone has a business, high school sponsor people too sometimes, and I sponsor people.
Yep.
And I don't ever know who they are until, you know, sometimes, you know, a week or so before. So
Okay,
when would you, I guess it would just be getting those logistics going, you know, like if I have a pop-up market, someone says, hey, I really wanna sell my stuff, but I don't have room for it, and I'm like, well, you could do a pop-up market, you know, and set up out in front of my store,
okay, I mean,
type of thing, so.
I defer to
I-
you guys on this, 'cause I don't
Yeah,
really
I'm just
have a big
trying to
preference.
figure out how to best do it. Like,
I
do
think
you
it-
do it on your quarterly report after the fact, or do you come in and say, hey, or call Danae or email Danae and say, hey, add this to my endorsement before they show up?
Well, how about I defer over to the city, so in terms of information that you would wanna know,
Yeah,
Like-
so I'm just trying to think, so, and I don't know if like just on the resort tax part of it, you know, for them to break it out as far as like, here's our normal stuff, but then
Yep.
maybe we did a pop-up market.
so it might just be an
Yeah.
additional resort tax form that they could send in with it,
Yeah.
that just has like, okay, these are their totals.
Mhm.
Yeah,
then-
see, and I think that would, I mean,
I'm good with
that's
that.
gonna be a pain for farmers market, they have a lot every week.
But not like break it out but just do a lump sum.
Oh,
No.
sure.
Oh,
Yep.
not like,
Not break it out per vendor.
okay,
Yeah.
just
'Cause
like,
I don't think it really matters,
okay.
Yeah.
but just to keep them, you know,
Okay,
say, hey, this is, you know.
And they would technically
Okay.
be responsible
That-
still to
It's
keep
just-
track of those records if they did get an audit, but
Right.
like, I mean, we don't necessarily have to have that submitted.
No,
okay,
we don't need that level of detail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
yeah, okay. And I guess,
What are taxable items at the farmer's market?
baked good, like, ready to, it's like sometimes people,
Bread.
there,
Yeah,
there were
pizza,
people that
cookies.
sold slices of pizza, there were people that sold drinks, there
Food
was,
for immediate consumption.
yes, yes. And then they also have craft vendors there sometimes too.
We don't tax, I mean, crafts, is that,
Yeah, that's all taxed.
it's all taxed.
It's all taxed, yeah.
Luxury.
So homemade potholders
Our-
versus
our tax.
Chinese-made pot holders at True Value, which are not taxed. I'm just throwing that out there,
Yeah, I usually tax,
how you determine a luxury, how a
I,
cottage industry is a luxury and a Chinese industry is not.
I know, it's tough. I just tax it all.
Right, but I'm just saying.
Like, I don't sit there and go, oh, I don't know. Yeah, typically, because like there's I mean, I sell, you know, people make aprons and they make soup cozies and they make, you know, all that type of stuff at my market. I tax it all because it's not just a made thing in China where it's actually kind of a piece of art. You know, it's quilting, it's, you know, it's special, so I tax it. Is kind of how I view it, because art is, you know, anything like that is taxed. It's not just, yeah, so I tax
Yeah,
it. I don't know if other people do or not,
struggle
but I
with it
do.
just because it's basically a function,
Yeah,
you know, whether you draw, if it said Montana on it.
yeah, well, and then
it's taxed, but
we also tax like luxury soaps and stuff like that too, so
Yeah,
I mean, it just,
technically like a household good, but like,
yeah, but like if it's special, you know, it's not just a plain old bar of, you know, Irish Spring. It's like it's a piece of, you know, it's.
just got a great business idea. Put a ribbon on it, Irish Spring, there we go.
I know. So, I mean, we kind of did differentiate that in the, you know, in the resort tax ordinance for like luxury soaps and shampoos and stuff
Mhm.
were taxed, but.
I'll back up to your, what we were just talking
Oh,
about.
yep, sorry, bye. I got ahead of
What was
myself.
the original purpose of that addition?
So specifically in this ordinance, it talks about the Arts Guild and the farmers market being able to have these temporary vendor sponsors. And then otherwise, you'd have to go get a temporary vendor's actual license or registration.
For each person that.
For each person that did it and participates. And it can be, they have to do a $500 resort tax bond. It's a lot of work for like a one-day pop-up.
Mhm.
So this provides an opportunity.
Especially for the city.
Exactly, specifically for the city, like, and then, so it gives that opportunity to, one, be able to work with the same people that you work with for time and time again, have those open communications with, know that they're paying their resort taxes, people that you can trust and have worked with in the past, while still having the opportunity to bring in temporary folks and new and fun things for the town. So it's just kind of an easier way for city and individuals to be able to do pop-ups and small business opportunities, and again, on a very temporary scale.
And the sponsoring business is the responsible entity for collecting the
Correct.
tax and
Yep.
paying the-
Exactly. So it just takes takes a lot of, because we've had so many different appeals for folks that
I
it's just,
can't even imagine.
it's really hard for some of these folks to remember to put in their resort tax. They were here
Right.
for one day, and then 3 months later, they owe some money and they don't remember to do it, and now the city is in charge of tracking these guys down. And they're in charge, like, these guys get penalties. It's just a lot of extra work.
I think Danae would love it if, you know, all temporary vendors had to have a sponsor, so she wouldn't have to deal with them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like-
Because
But we can't really do that, so.
Yeah.
So, because you would utilize this at 5,555.
Yeah. And I have in the
How
past.
do you envision it working for you, keeping track of your,
Well, what I do is I just let them know before they set up, you have to collect 4% resort tax. At the end of the day, give me, you know, your list of your sales and write me a check for the resort tax, and then or give me cash for it, and I then keep track of that, and I include it in my quarterly in my sales. So all this the only difference would be, it would be, you know, I just include it in my one report, but I would just do a separate report for any pop-ups I have. That would be my only bookkeeping difference. You know, and honestly, I haven't had that many of them, you know, that didn't already have, you know, there've been probably, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 throughout the 5 years I've been there, where they weren't already my vendor, you know, so
Right.
I was already,
One thing we should add to this is that the temporary vendor still has to follow,
yeah.
vendor still must follow rules of, and again, we'll clean this up, this is just mostly so I don't forget.
Yeah, it just, yeah, they
Now,
saw,
temporary vendors, are they restricted on how many times they can?
Yep, exactly, that's kind of why I wanted to put that there, is
on what?
you can't,
Yeah.
Oh,
So you can only have a pop-up so many times in
Yep.
a year within the city limits?
yeah, there
is
is,
there a limit on that?
yes, there is, so let's, I'll just scroll
Oh,
down to
I
that.
didn't know that. I mean, I've never had anybody just set up every week in front of my store, you
Right.
know, but,
So actually, we do have a whole section on multiple businesses owned by the same individual entity, branch establishes. I like the idea of a temporary business sponsor versus umbrella.
because we had, like with the food trucks, because they fit under the temporary vendor license, and their limit though was like, what was it, 6 months or something like that?
yeah, I'm gonna pull it up here real
I
quick.
mean, it's not like it's 3 times or 4 times, it's a lot.
Yeah, no, it's a substantial amount that they can, but
Yeah.
trying to find it. Sorry, I hate it when I have to be zoomed in like this. Ouch.
But the main ones that will utilize this are, like St. Agnes for their craft fair, the farmer's market, the Arts Guild for their Labor Day Arts Fest. I think the Elks puts on a craft vendor fair as well. You know, it's mainly those ones that are really going to, every now and then, like, the Community Foundation, when they do Summerfest, because they have vendors at the Summerfest as well,
Yeah,
they would be another one. So it's mainly these events that have vendors at them, more than, you know, every now and then you might get a pop-up at another store where, you know, they, hey, can I sit up and sell my stuff for a day? So,
SDRs. There we go, temporaries. Oh my gosh, this is so hard to like figure out where I'm at.
I mean, as far as resort tax goes, I think, Rod, I think you have the hardest, you know,
Oh,
decision
God.
on what to tax and what not to tax. Mine is kind of easy because I'm more of a gift store, so people expect to pay the tax. I don't really differentiate, you know, if they're buying used, you know, clothes from the thrift store, I'll take the tax off, you know, but everything upstairs that's
All right, here we go.
like handmade and handcrafted, I typically charge the tax on.
Here's our, any firm, person, or corporation intends to operate a temporary business within city limits, cannot operate more than 90 consecutive days. We got rid of consecutive because, yeah, that would be,
Yeah.
yeah, so more than 90 days within the calendar year.
So like the Greek truck who comes back and
Yep.
he's a temporary vendor. He's
Yep.
probably licensed with the city, passed all the food inspections and stuff like
Yep.
that, but he comes throughout the year, but he's not, I don't think he's ever here more than 90 days a year.
Right, but he gets his own license.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does his own, he's not
But,
sponsored by.
so, yeah, so if you sponsor a temporary vendor, it'd be the same thing. They can't come more than 90 days and set up in front of your shop.
Yep.
Okay.
That is one question, though, in terms of with temporary vendors, we obviously have different types. So it's one thing when you have someone selling paintings, it's another thing when you have someone selling cheeseburgers. Because they have additional steps that they have to go through
Yeah, I
with
mean,
health and
if-
sanitation.
Yeah,
So-
I would definitely say they have to, they have to, whatever rules apply for that type of business, they have to satisfy.
Oh,
whether
cool.
it's-
We actually wrote some of this in. I forgot that we had done like half of this
Okay.
already.
I know.
So temporary vendors are exempt from obtaining a business registration certificate. If a temporary vendor sponsor business, we gotta change the language around, is committed in writing to accept the responsibility for that vendor. The sponsor is required to obtain an active business registration certificate and submitted all the fees and documentation, accepts the responsibility for resort tax, remits resort tax, is responsible for audits, responsible for any and all penalties and fines, all business conducted at this, and then also responsible for all business conducted at that physical location. So I think that means, like, if that business, and that's part of the reason, like, we should know who these businesses are when that sponsor
So I
happens.
can tell you, I probably would never sponsor a food truck, because if you're responsible for their fines,
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, no.
Yeah.
I don't like, God.
So what constitutes accepting responsibility in writing?
I think just, and that's why I think we should have some sort of, like, when you have a new vendor, it just goes on your file, and it's kind of tagged with you. So, I mean, even if that's the farmer's market, like, each person that they have come in has to fill out a form, and then they can submit it to the city under that sponsor. Does that make sense? And
Well, and I
again,
think it's not just, it's temporary vendors, it's pop-up markets, you know, in that type of situation. 'Cause like in my store, I have vendors all over the place, but I work it, you know, and I mean, it's my,
right,
you know,
Yep.
that's different, where you're selling something for them on
Mhm.
consignment or.
Yeah, that's a different
That's-
business model
Yeah, that's not a
entirely.
temporary vendor, yeah.
Yeah,
So this is just specific to pop-up markets, or somebody wants to, you know, come in and, yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, I think food trucks should not be included in that temporary vendor thing.
well, I mean,
I think, you know, any type of food sales like that, I think that
well, that's
because.
a lot of the farmer's market, though, like.
No, I meant, but they don't have food trucks. I'm talking like, I don't know,
Again, that
out
would be my
here.
only concern is.
that's my only
Food
concern
truck
is that they,
temporary?
you need to make sure that they have,
They're not brick and mortars.
Yeah.
that they passed all the health inspections. That's a
Right.
huge deal.
So do farmer's market vendors not have to
Sir.
qualify to be serving safe food?
Maybe.
No, they have to. But there's a difference between a cottage food license and a commercial kitchen license.
I wonder if like definitions,
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Rodney's saying, categories.
Because by putting it in there that you're responsible for their fines, that's huge.
yeah.
So I
Oh, yeah.
don't think that,
No, I'm not,
I think, yeah, I don't really like
Right.
that.
You're taking their money, and if you
well, I think what we intended with that, when it's responsible for any and all city penalties and fines,
Okay, if you put city penalties and fines, that's
that's, I think,
different.
what the intention was.
I do not want to be responsible for the state of Montana or the health department
Right.
fining them.
Well, again, it's
Okay.
not like I'm
like,
responsible as a
wait.
property manager for, like, if, I mean, to a degree, I am responsible for, like, some county and state stuff, but
Yeah,
I'm not responsible to pay the owner's property taxes
right.
and those
Think
fines.
Yeah, okay, so I
Like,
think you
again,
just
there's
need to say
different, like,
what fines they're responsible for.
yeah, so I think city penalties and fines, like, okay, you had someone here and then they littered all over the street, that's on you.
Yeah.
And you have to go deal with that with that
I have to
vendor.
go clean it up.
Yeah.
Or make them
But,
clean it up.
you know, obviously, if there's like a food code violation or a health code violation,
Yeah,
that's on them, because that's with a different entity. Like, they're getting registered or licensed outside of the city for that, that's on them, that's their own
Okay.
relationship.
perfect.
We're just talking about city business, because we wouldn't have any way to, like, take that authority.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's the only way it makes sense.
The only thing I would point out in any document that you create is that these discussions, you understand it 5 years from now when somebody looks at that document,
Yeah,
are they gonna understand it? Are they
Yeah.
gonna have the same knowledge?
yep, we try to be pretty clear in that when we write that stuff out at this point, because we've seen, that's part of the reason we're redoing this one, is there were some vague areas that left some gray spots.
Yeah.
So it's part of the reason we're adding a lot of definitions and purpose, so,
I know, 'cause see, right now, when I do a pop-up market, when I let someone do a pop-up market, my main responsibility for me is making sure they pay resort tax.
yeah,
That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you can set up in front of my store, and, I will, you know, you collect 4% resort tax, and you're working under my business license, or my business registration, and I'll do that. But I'm not taking responsibility if they do something criminal out there
Right.
that I don't know, you know
Yeah.
what I'm
No,
saying? You know,
totally.
it just,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, 'cause I mean, I would probably, obviously, I would, if I saw it, I would say something, you know, but it just,
Should there be a different name for this temporary vendor, because temporary vendor right now is covering food trucks.
Yep,
Yeah, it's also covering the vendors that come in over the heart
Yeah, it's
of
a
the
large-
Syracuse Rally or,
But food trucks seem to be kind of an issue, I don't, you know,
I think the food issue, the food one though, I think is, you guys are more concerned about the sponsor part of, if somebody is gonna sponsor vendors, they're having concerns with the food truck as the temporary being sponsored, correct?
I just don't want the business to be responsible to make, I just don't think any business would want to sponsor a food truck if they have to be responsible to make sure that vendor has all of their licenses in place. You know, their health food and everything like that. So I
well,
would
if that's the
say-
case, then I don't think it's a problem, because then
But I
realistically,
don't
they're
know
not
that
gonna-
they know that, and I honestly, I think it would be easier just to say, exempt food trucks from being sponsored.
Well,
You know,
to
they
me-
have to come in and get their temporary vendor license through the city, so the city can make sure they're licensed correctly. I think, because we're putting a lot on that business owner,
Yeah,
and some business owner may not
realize what they're signing up for.
Yeah, and I just don't, I mean, I wouldn't want to be responsible for that, you know, I would want them to have their own city licenses and stuff like that and pay that themselves. Does that make sense? I mean, I just, I'm just talking full-on commercial kitchen food truck type
Right, no, I hear what
situation
you're saying.
that has to have their serve safe and their health certificate and,
Well, I'm trying to remember the process that Brian goes through when a food truck comes in, because I know he does a site visit. He
Mhm,
checks
yep.
that there's proper disposal,
Yeah.
checks that there's proper
Mm,
water,
I
and there's no,
just do not think that a city business owner in town has those qualifications to take on that responsibility. That's my personal opinion. And I think that because of the health and safety risk to people eating that food, I think that needs to not be allowed. I think the city needs to handle those type of situations. And Brian does when he goes out but that's my personal opinion, so.
I think I agree. I think it should be separate, food trucks, because of all the reasons you've just stated. The public safety, number one.
number one. Sorry, I'm just racking my brain on how this looks.
so just.
So instead of having a temporary
They would-
vendor's license, we could just have a separate category just for food trucks.
Correct.
I like that.
It's a separate animal.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's actually kinda nice too, because there's a lot of folks, because that was one of the issues with temporary vendors in the first place that we were struggling with. Again, the difference between an artist and a food truck coming in, but these guys are now being lumped into this category that one has to pay heavier fines.
Mm.
And part of the reason we wanted to add this sponsor
But
opportunity
they could.
is so that those folks wouldn't necessarily have to
The most
spend,
Right.
because I think it's what, $200 for that registration fee to come in and sell knickknacks, like,
Yeah.
Whatever, yeah.
and again, to me, I'm a big fan of small business and pop-ups and artists, and I think it adds character.
Sure.
So, I like the idea of food trucks being its own separate
Yep.
entity. And
They
then
all
they
agree.
can be lumped into this, and then even the little guys that wanna come in, you know, and have their own temporary registration, they don't necessarily have to have a sponsor at that point.
Yeah,
If
that's
it's
their
a-
choice.
It's up $100 fee.
Yeah.
You know, and so, I like how that provides opportunities for a lot of folks. So
Well,
that's good to work on. That's gonna be a
Okay.
big one.
Well, we're
Okay.
just about out of time, so I like these discussions a lot. I would like to move forward on this next time, and hopefully this will be our main priority at our next meeting, unless we have anything else we have to add on, but.
One thing I will note, I will
Yeah.
not be at our next meeting.
Won't be here.
I will be in Mexico. Yeah, and I'm not canceling that for this. No offense, y'all.
I'll have a resolution coming forward to, create a fund for the EDA, because, to make it cleaner as far as money coming in, money going out. It's just gonna create a fund, kinda like how we created the disaster fund. Everything is
This is for that grant?
the EDA grant, yeah.
Okay.
So I just
Remind
gotta
me
get-
so that I remember.
Yeah, so I just gotta get with Dennison to make sure that I all the right.
Sure.
Okay.
So that'll come forward.
And then, do we want to start the resolution for the ballot language on the, to put it before the voters for the no, for the letting them decide if we want cultivation and manufacturing of marijuana in the city limits of Red Lodge.
Yeah.
And we were gonna say commercial cultivation, not private.
I said, cultivation / commercial grow, and you're actually CC'd on that, I sent it out to Dennis.
Okay.
so.
Okay. 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 Can you, I don't know, send Doug and I copies of what we
Yep.
have so far on 907?
Yep, I'll
And-
send that over to you guys, as well as 963, because, again, stuff's gonna be going back into that.
Okay.
I guess it's
Yeah.
all in 907, so we can pick and choose what we wanna keep in 907 and move back into 963.
Yeah.
But I'll send both. And I'm gonna take these notes. Again, I will not be at the next council meeting, or admin meeting, or land use meeting. I'll be back the next day, though.
All right, meeting adjourned unless anyone has anything else.
Meeting adjourned.
Okay, thank you all.
I'm gonna have to probably go back and listen. This is one bummer about